Welcome back. This has quite literally been a media storm over Russell Brand, and lots of people have been pressing me, pushing me, asking me for my personal opinion on this whole thing. Now, you know that I don't like giving my personal opinions on things for a number of reasons. One, it really doesn't matter what I think, because opinions, unless they are an expert opinion, don't really count. And that's coming from my position as a barrister and going to court, and only expert opinions really inform the evidence and a decision and a finding of fact. But that said, we all do have opinions. We all do have personal thoughts about it. Now, I'm going to give you something of a personal opinion, so you won't be disappointed. This is not clickbait in the slightest, but you won't be surprised either, because whilst most of what I say is reserved over on Black Belt Barrister, for those of you that are not familiar, I am a barrister of England and Wales. I am Daniel Shen Smith. This is Black Belt Secrets you're on here, so please do pop that subscribe button here as well, so you get my personal opinions on this channel. I like to give you both channels so that I can give you the very neutral legal standpoint, and on here I like to give you my personal thoughts. Now, what do I really think about this Russell Brand situation? Well, I think it has to be said like this. I think it is really terrible on many different counts. First of all, it is terrible that there are people that feel that they need to go to the media with these allegations, because if they feel that they have to go to media with allegations and they don't trust going to the police with those allegations, that tells you something about the system, the legal system. And that is if those allegations are indeed true, because we don't know that yet. People do make false allegations. It's really damning to say that they might be false allegations, and that's really difficult for true victims to hear, because this is absolutely no way against true victims, because allegations can be real, they can be made up. We've come across many cases where very serious allegations are made and they are just made up. So that is a fact. Allegations very often are made up. But also, possibly even more often than that, allegations are true, but they never go forward, in a sense that the police never take these allegations forward. And so the first thing that I say is it is really a damning state of affairs when anyone chooses or feels the need to make these allegations via the media, as opposed to going through official channels and getting them reported and investigated and charged by the police. Especially when it's someone in a very powerful media public position. That is a really difficult choice to do. The second thing is, obviously, it is really terrible for someone, whether it's Russell Brand or anyone else, whether you like them, whether you don't like them, it is really terrible for them to have their income taken away off allegations and not off a conviction. It's not as though that he's been convicted, he's not even been charged. And as far as we understand it, the police are not looking into seriously charging him for anything that we know of as yet. And that is why in my previous videos I've said we don't know and we can't comment, because we haven't been told that the police are, looking to charge him or considering charging him or even interviewing him, questioning him and so on. So we don't know any of that either. So that makes that very damning and difficult as well. So that is really terrible as well. But is it right or is it wrong? And what do I think and do I agree? Well, that is a difficult question to answer as well, because I've got two perspectives on that as well. As an individual, as a creator myself, some people have said in the comments, you could get allegations and you could have your monetization docked and you could have your income slashed. That is true. I'm quite aware of that. And even if those allegations were false, and these allegations against Russell Brand may well be false, but they may be real. We don't know. It is a terrible state of affairs when someone has their income taken away like that. But do I agree with it? There's two ways of looking at this. First of all, you could say, well, it is absolutely unjustified because they are just allegations and there's not even a charge, let alone a conviction. So it's wrong. On the other hand, you might say, And this is how I genuinely think about it. You asked for my opinion, so I'm not just going to go straight and say, I believe this because that's what I believe. I'll give you the way that I think about these things. So the way that I think about this is I think about it from both sides. My thinking has changed a lot since becoming a lawyer, since before being a lawyer. Before being a lawyer, I would have jumped to conclusions much more easily. I would have looked at things a little bit more superficially. I'd have had disagreements with people probably more superficially than I do now. For example, now if there's a dispute, I will look at the reasoning behind that dispute, and in a roundabout way, I would say it makes you more mature to be thinking of things as a lawyer would think about them. And I can't help but think about things as a lawyer would think about them, even if it's my own personal opinion. When someone asks me what is my personal opinion about something, I do still feel the need to think about both sides. That is what training as a lawyer has sort of made me do. I have no choice now. It's embedded within me, it's ingrained within me to think about things from both sides. So that said, I think about this from both sides. I think about the standpoint of the creator and the general public and the sort of public facing attitude as to what we think of an organization unilaterally making these decisions to cut somebody's income. And I think that's really bad. But on the other hand, I think of it from a business owner's perspective. Not that my business is anything like the size of Google, but I think of it from a business perspective. And what would a business want to do if someone within it? And so in a roundabout way, creators on the platform are an integral part of the business. They're not employed. They're not even really subcontracted or whatever, but there is a contract of sorts when you sign up to the partner program. It is an agreement. You sign up to these agreements. You agree to comply with and abide by the terms, the conditions, the guidelines, and of course all of the morality clauses, the community guidelines, the community clauses, and everything. So you have to comply with all of those. And the unfortunate truth is that if these allegations are published and it makes the platform look bad, the company, Google, Alphabet, for its platform YouTube, has this set of community guidelines. And if you owned that business, you would probably want to put some set of terms and conditions in place to protect the reputation of your business. And if we wind back without mentioning any names or, anyone specific, we can reach back in time and pluck out half a dozen names of people who have since been found to be guilty of really heinous things that were not, let's say, taken off air, not dealt with, not prosecuted, and so on in the past. But now it is known that they were guilty of those things. And so it is all too easy with hindsight and retrospect to look back and say, we should have done something then. And so now it's a catch-22 with Russell Brand, YouTube, and anyone else, frankly, that has these allegations. It's a catch-22 because they are sort of damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. If they do what they've done, demonetize, they will get criticism. They have received criticism for it. They've received praise from some people. Some of you won't believe that there is praise for this, but I have seen comments of praise. I've seen a lot of condemnation as well. But that is if they do. But if they don't, and if these allegations are charged, and if they do proceed to a prosecution and there is a conviction, and then there is retrospect, and then someone then says, he made all of this money between the point of these allegations going public and the point, let's say, of conviction, if there were a conviction. I have no idea whether there will be charges or let alone a conviction at this point, to make that clear. But let's say that did happen. Someone would say, I predict, and I presume someone would say, look at all this money he made between then and then. And If that takes 3 years, that's going to be in the region of £3-4 million plus made on the platform whilst these allegations were live and known of up until the conviction, if there were a conviction. So that is the catch-22. What do? They must have sat down and had a conversation, and they must have said, well, we have a clear choice. We either allow it to continue or we turn off the monetization. They could have deleted the account entirely and removed it entirely, and they didn't do that. So this is a halfway house. They haven't just removed him from the platform. So they haven't actually silenced him, but they have taken away the revenue. Many people obviously believe that that is just as bad. If that were me, yes, I would think that's just as bad. If someone cuts it off monetarily, because some people rely on it. I don't rely on this, but maybe most of what Russell Brand was doing was geared towards his YouTube, or so I read. And so if he relies on that, then yes, that is severely cut off. But they haven't switched off the channel completely. So it's a halfway house in one sense. But either way, it's a catch-22. Damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. They'll be criticised if they do what they've done, and they'll be criticised later if they didn't do this now. And he's made millions of pounds off it leading up to then, funded the case, and ultimately convicted, or if that's what happened. So that is a very difficult decision to make. Now, my conclusion to all of that, and this is the way that I think, my conclusion to all of that is they must have had a team sit down, discuss this, probably with some material. My prediction is that they have some material, possibly from the newspapers, possibly directly from the complainants themselves. I don't know, but my prediction is that they have access to some material. They've reviewed it, and they've said, well, based off what we know, we have no choice but to act. That's what I think happened. Do I think it's a good thing? It's impossible to say whether it's a good thing and a bad thing, because if the allegations are true and all of this did happen, and ultimately there's a charge or charges and a trial and a conviction, then with hindsight you can say it was the right thing to do. Although you might then make the argument, I make these counter arguments all the time. I'm doing this live. This is not scripted. Live as in unscripted. This is the way that I think. I will say something and then I will contradict myself and make the argument against it. I might say that it's not fair because one should be able to defend themselves with every means that they have and with their means untouched until they are proven to be guilty of something, which as yet is not. So in that sense, it's not fair. But this is a balancing exercise, and it is a very difficult balancing exercise to do. So I come back to my conclusion, this was my thought process, I come back to my conclusion that they must have had a team sit down and decide this is what we're going to do. Rumble have obviously decided the reverse, free speech all the way, and they're not going to do anything. The danger with that, of course, is if some of what some people say is ultimately wrong and damaging, then they've allowed it on the platform and they could ultimately get criticised for it. That's the difficulty they have with going their route. But that's their call to make. Many people will feel that that was the wrong decision. And many people feel that that's right. So none of these views, I think, are wrong, is the only conclusion I can come to. Many people will feel very strongly one way or another. And what I can say is you're probably both right. You're right to think that it is really bad. And if you think that it was the right choice because you relate to victims and complainants, and you might feel that this is the right thing to do, then you're right as well. Because at the moment, the only views that you can form are based on what has been made public and what is available. And there isn't much of it. There is snippets that is in the news and hints within the letters. The parliamentary committee, I'll correct myself from the previous video, it's not a governmental committee, it's a parliamentary committee where they've written these letters. And there is a hint within those that there might be more information. At least that's the way that I read it. So those are my views, my opinion such as it is, as much of my opinion as I can fathom and bring out with this sort of internal dialogue and analysis. It's the way that I think about it. And the only firm conclusion is that we just don't know whether these are true or not. The only thing that I would probably leave you with is that, as the old saying goes, there's no smoke without fire. On the balance of probabilities, if they've been published by the news companies and they will have done some research, analysis, consult with legal. It's not to say that everything they print is true, as some people say in the comments. I am not saying that I trust everything they say, and I'm not saying that everything they print is true. It's just that on the balance of probabilities, out of 1,000 stories that these news companies print, more of them are going to be accurate than not, because they will research and fact check, they will consult legal. Yes, they will get some of them wrong. And if they get them wrong, they get held to account. I've held news companies to account for clients of mine, and they've had to pay out because they've been wrong. They've printed something, it's been flat out wrong. There's no wiggle room whatsoever because it was categorically not what they said it was, and they've had to pay out without going to court. So they do get it wrong. So, here, take that from me, words straight from the horse's mouth as a barrister of England and Wales. They do sometimes get these things wrong, and they do have to pay out. And we're not talking pocket change. We're talking reasonable sums of money here. They do pay out when they get things wrong. And so if all of this is wrong, there is a serious case in the making here. It's unfolding day by day. There is a serious case in the making if all of this is wrong. If I were to say on the balance of probabilities, it is more likely than not that they have information that backs up what they've printed, that they've possibly not actually printed. I hope that makes sense. But, and this is still not me taking sides, by the way. My opinion is limited to what has happened, how I think those decisions have been reached, the things that they've considered in making that decision, how difficult it must have been, how catch-22 it must be. It is not as simple as they shouldn't demonetize because it's just allegations. It isn't that simple because we have history to look at. We have whatever information they have that they've considered to consider that we don't know about. If there is anything, I suspect that there is. I still maintain that there must be something else. At least I would hope so, because I would certainly hope that these sort of decisions are not made on a whim, they're not made lightly, and that they are made with some information that backs it up. Those are my thoughts, those are my views. It's raw, it's unscripted. You probably know by now I don't script my videos. I try to remain neutral. I'm always pressed for my opinions. Some of you really enjoy my opinions, and even my opinions probably come out as being quite neutral most of the time, because I try to see both sides. There are occasions when it is absolutely clear-cut one way or the other. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you can relate to some of it. Don't shoot the messenger if there's bits of it you don't like. It is just an analysis, and that's how I form my views. I hope you enjoyed that. Please do remember to like the video and subscribe. That really helps me grow, and I appreciate that. I am very grateful to you for subscribing to my channel. We are nearly at 100,000 here on Black Belt Secrets. I'm really excited. Please do subscribe, and I'll see you next time.